So the first scene of the deleted scenes that we're going to show you is the very beginning of the movie, basically. And I did this montage at the beginning of the movie where you were kind of seeing from Casey's point of view, but you don't know who it is yet, and you haven't met her yet. And you're just kind of watching people shopping with their bags and their drinks and supersized drinks and things like that, and on their cell phones. And really, it's kind of her feeling of being detached from everyone, that they're kind of okay with life, and it goes into the themes of everyone's asleep that Patricia will later say in the movie, and that the Beast philosophy has about that the general world is asleep. So that's the way we used to start the movie, and then you see her and she kind of snaps out of her reverie because someone bumps into her. And there was a sense of kind of her not fitting in and her kind of being invisible, like the patrons don't even see her, and she can't find a place to fit in. And so she bumps into a guest from another table, and then a waiter bumps into her, and she can't find a place for herself. And she doesn't really fit in kind of a social teenager atmosphere. But the reason we cut it was because, you know, it's just, that's too much knowledge about her at the beginning. It's, first of all, it was kind of obtuse at the beginning, the thing I told you about kind of the world being asleep, but also she herself, to learn that much right away, you wanted her to kind of be mysterious and slowly learn about who she is and why she's acting the way she did. But it's a beautiful scene, so I'm glad to show it to you.
Sorry, didn't see you there.
You can't keep your chair there.
So this is a really big deal. The deleted scenes that we're going to show you now, which is starting with this first one here, which is, there's a character in the movie that I cut out, and it really killed me to cut this character out because it was played by a brilliant, brilliant actor named Sterling Brown, who actually won the Emmy for the O.J. Simpson series this same year. A beautiful man, amazing actor, and so very, very, very difficult to cut this whole sequence out. But the first scene you're going to see is basically he plays Dr. Fletcher's neighbor, and he's a professor of the brain, and he teaches neuroscience and what the brain's capable of. And so all of his scenes were kind of meant to talk about what the brain is capable of, but it was also meant to show kind of Dr. Fletcher's loneliness. Dr. Fletcher kind of has a crush on this kind of younger professor that lives in the apartment building, and I love that kind of unrequited relationship that they have. And then he comes to realize, oh my gosh, she literally has a crush on me. This is really awkward. And it ultimately, this whole sequence didn't make it into the movie because they weren't directly dealing with the case of Kevin Wendell Crumb. And when you put a movie together and the pressure of a thriller, it just won't allow anything that isn't trying to solve the problem, the exact problem that the movie is based on. And really, it's an error on my part, kind of falling in love with characters and falling in love with a relationship that's not, you know, worshiping the god of plot. And that's a struggle of screenwriters. But anyway, this is the first scene. They both are incredible in it, and they're very funny and flirty through all of these scenes. So this is the first moment you meet Professor Shaw.
Good morning.
I read those articles.
Amazing, right? This man theorizes that the human brain contains about 10 to the 10th, about 10 billion bits of information per cubic centimeter. The brain is therefore, in his opinion, 10,000 times more densely packed with information than a computer.
It's lovely.
I gotta tell you, I love this idea of yours that those who have suffered might be the more extraordinary. Look, you should just audit my class, Dr. Fletcher.
What would I do socializing with a bunch of 20-year-olds?
Oh, they would fawn over you. Especially when they find out what your area of speciality is.
So, what's the next reading, Professor?
Essays on how the evolution of the brain is an analogous one. They convey that most of evolution is this way. Nothing is thrown away. It's amended. The deep and ancient parts are still functioning. The crocodile brain is still alive.
I'll read it tonight. Just email me later.
I will. I'm sorry I have to rush the class.
I went to the doctor today. Just the usual dribble about slowing down. This short hair thing of my physician really bothers me. I mean, she's a woman in her 30s, and short hair clearly sends a signal that the shop is closed, that sexuality is not a high priority. I'm not sure it's in my best interest to listen to someone whose priorities are so convoluted. See you later.
Bye, Doc.
So this second Shaw scene here is kind of her coming to a party that he's having in his apartment. And again, it's to kind of show her loneliness, and he has a full life, and he has friends, and there's women there that he's interested in, and she's a little bit jealous, a little bit left out, and you know, she's an older lady, and she doesn't know her place, but she kind of makes excuses to come to talk to him, and so she's constantly asking about the brain and what, you know, what it's capable of, and she is doing this to learn about the brain to help her patients. But there's obviously a personal part to it too. Now this particular scene I love because I wrote this speech about the autistic brain, what happens when an autistic savant concentrates. You know, they can learn to play Beethoven just by hearing it. And I was feeling similarities between what they can do and what DID patients could do. So this is a scene where the two of them, these two colleagues, kind of talk about that connection.
You just stop me when it's time for your date.
It's not a date. It's just work colleagues and friends getting together.
Well, I'm gonna ignore that obvious lie. This party is clearly a ruse for a salacious objective.
I would never allow one of my real students to meet me after class like this.
Are those your hoochies?
They're my friends, Dr. Fletcher, yes.
The more zaftig one is a catch, but the other two are beneath you.
I tend to agree.
You know what? I'll email you my questions.
You're just using me to prove your thesis, that your clients are real.
I use everybody.
You know, you've almost convinced me, by the way.
How so?
I was thinking there are studies about the autistic brain. They show an autistic savant can shut out other stimuli and see things in a field with astounding acuity. Now, it's possible that your patients are compartmentalizing in the same fashion. Compartmentalizing is everything to assimilating information. It's hyper-concentration. It would explain the way that they can master language, knowledge, skills. There's scientific precedent for this.
Sometimes I think people won't believe unless they see it for themselves.
Maybe.
You should go. The pheromones from your inamoratas are making me nauseous.
Let's see if we can convince some people together. And they're attorneys, Dr. Fletcher.
Go do a lap, as they say.
You're terrible.
So this is the final scene between the two of them. Shaw Professor Shaw and Dr. Fletcher. And basically, it's this really awkward scene where Dr. Fletcher has dropped by yet again, kind of uninvited, where he's having a date. He's about to leave on a date with this beautiful woman, and she's very awkwardly there. And they basically have this weird triangle conversation, and Professor Shaw doesn't want her to hurt her feelings, and he's being very supportive. And now the girlfriend's like, "Why are you paying more attention to her?" And this is very odd. But the thing they're talking about, and the way Dr. Fletcher kind of goes at the girlfriend there, was a really important speech for me, and I was sad to not have it in the movie, where she talks about the facts of how the mind and the body are connected between stress and the blood pressure and the placebo effect. So it's a really, really cool logic that leads through DID and makes it all facts. So it was really important and something that I really believe in. So here's that scene. And also at the end of it, she confesses that she kind of has a crush on him, and he's kind of taken aback. It's kind of a beautiful thing, and she kind of connects her loneliness to her obsession of DID. And that's one of my favorite moments in the movie that's not in the movie, this moment where she says why she is obsessed with DIT people and why she's kind of envious of them.
I'm sorry to drop by unannounced.
Oh, please. Our reservation isn't for half an hour.
I don't buy it. I'm sorry for being blunt. I would need to see the evidence.
You know, everything in brain development would support this.
Psychology and physiology are linked, my young attorney friend. That is scientific fact. When you stress, your blood pressure goes up.
I'll buy that.
I give you a sugar pill and tell you it's the cure, and you cure yourself. The placebo effect is scientific fact. DID patients have changed their body chemistry with their thoughts. What they think they are, they are.
I don't think what you're saying they can do is possible. I just can't accept it. I'm sorry.
Well, I've seen studies on the placebo effect. It's amazing.
She's nice.
You're right. Not about her.
I'm afraid she won't believe unless she sees. I'm not just using you to prove my thesis. You know, sometimes I think I'm obsessed with DID patients because I envy them.
How so?
They're never alone.
Have you seen my purse?
Bye.
So this is a scene where all the three girls are trying to figure out what's going on here, and they're all kind of putting out their theories and trying to figure out what's happening because it's confusing to them. Is this a crazy person? Does he want something sexual from them? What's happening? And I really enjoyed the way they each kind of threw out their opinion about how bad this situation is, and at the end, kind of Casey comes to a conclusion that both baffles them but makes them feel like this is even worse than they can imagine. And the reason that this is not in the film, and again, this was in the film for a long time, was this pressure at the beginning of the movie for the girls to figure out a way out and to get to the moment when Patricia opens the door. It really, the movie kind of takes off like a rocket from that moment on. There's always a kind of a gunshot moment in the movie, and that's obviously for Split the moment where Patricia, they reveal that Patricia is there. So the faster we got to that, the better. And so this kind of came out. This was in the movie for a long time. So I hope you enjoy it.
There's a flower on the pillows, a flower in the bathroom. Like we're important.
Maybe he wants to make us his brides. You know, one of those guys who wants to Stockholm syndrome you, who'll keep us here for 15 years, be just nice enough.
There are no cabinets. No clothes. We're not staying here for a long time. We're meant for something.
So this scene is actually was a really, really fun scene with Patricia, where she's kind of ranting about how one feeds animals and kind of, you know, she's so excited about this whole thing and thinks it's wonderful for them that they're a part of this kind of sacrifice. And and the way she's talking about it as if it's their wedding day and gleeful about it is kind of bizarre and funny. And the girls are kind of taken aback. And then Casey starts to kind of out logic her a little bit and try to get out of the room. Her whole point is to try to get out of the room. And actually, this scene's really interesting because this was the scene that we found Patricia. And what I mean by that was James and I were, you know, trying to figure out who is Patricia? What does she sound like? Who is she? And I said, well, you know, what if she had a British accent? What if she was kind of really, you know, prim and proper and she does everything right? And why don't you read this page, James? And he read this page as Patricia for the first time. So for me, this dialogue that you're about to see is always the birth of Patricia. As soon as I heard him do this, you know, full carcass feedings and talking about how you feed an animal in that kind of zealot-like British, you know, accent that he's doing, I was like, that's Patricia, done. We know who Patricia is, so I hope you enjoy this scene. The reason it's not in there is because I didn't want Casey to trick Patricia just yet. I wanted Patricia to be in control and take them to the kitchen.
That's to show how important you are. It won't be long.
Who's coming?
I can't say, but I understand. This must all seem so unsatisfactory for you, but we are doing the best we can. I don't know if you know this, but full carcass feeding is simply the best thing for animals, provided that the carcasses are fresh and don't have any respiratory issues, and you two don't look like you do. Did you know that a tiger has only 30 teeth? That's 12 less than a dog. I thought that was a fun fact.
Could we eat somewhere else? Anywhere.
Pardon?
We're frightened in here. It's a new place for us, and I grew up on a farm, and our vet says that animals eat better in familiar environments.
My, aren't you the clever one? They do say that. Is she trying to trick me? I'm not a child.
No. I just don't have an appetite.
Yeah.
This is an additional flashback of Casey when she was a kid, and I think the only one that's not, the one that I wrote that's not in the movie. And again, this was in the movie for a long time, and it's a very subtle reason why I didn't put it in. I didn't want it, why I wrote it was a feeling of that the child had told her dad about what in her best way at 5 years old, was strong and figured out a way to tell her dad, I don't want to be around him anymore, her uncle, and was proactive. And it seems like everything's solved. And then we cut back to her, and she's screaming in the room where Dennis has kept her. And what I was hoping for was like a feeling of like, why is she still screaming? What don't we know? Even though it seems like he handled it at that point, but I took it out because I felt like it was an extra kind of loop-de-loop emotionally that was unnecessary. She had this incredibly traumatic experience, and then we learn later about the passing of her father in another flashback, and I wanted just a clean movement. That extra loop in the middle seemed unnecessary, but I do love the scene, and I'm glad you guys get to see it.
Could kill me.
Why are you guys so quiet? Something wrong? Casey?
I don't want to hunt with Uncle John anymore. I want to just be us.
Okay, babe. We can do that. Deal.
You good?
So when I was writing the script, this whole kind of Hedwig taking Casey out of the room sequence was much longer, and what you're about to see is a kind of a little beat of what we were originally thinking, that Hedwig would play all these weird games and with her and keep acting like this was the funnest moment of his life, having this girl, and he gets to take her out, and so he's kind of on a date, and he's doing the best he can because he's only 10 years old. But in the end, again, we wanted to get to that dance moment as soon as possible. And really, I was kind of being redundant, you know, saying, okay, he's weird and having fun, and this is kind of scary. And I kept doing the same beat, so it was very redundant. So that's why I took it out. But it's a really kind of fun sequence to see.
Hurry up, come on, let's go. It's time.
I'm gonna be big one day. Taller than you. Let's play hide and seek!
Hedwig? Hedwig?
Me. Good job.
When I did the first cut of the movie, put the movie together for the first time and showed it to a kind of a group of friends in New York, it was 3 hours long, and every scene was in the movie, and you know, you slowly carve away over time. I didn't know how long it would eventually be. I think it's just under 2 hours, you know, the final movie. So you can see there's a lot that came out and a lot of beautiful moments. This scene you're about to see is with Dennis. He kind of, after he sprays Dr. Fletcher, he feels remorse because he doesn't understand. In my mind, Dennis was recruited by Patricia, and Patricia's the zealot. She believes in the beast, and she recruited Dennis. And Dennis is kind of, you know, he wants to be important. He wants to be a part of something, but he's not really that fanatical like Patricia. So when he has to spray Dr. Fletcher, he feels, you know, conflicted. He likes Dr. Fletcher. So when this is a scene of him feeling remorse and coming to Casey, a little moment of him trying to connect with Casey, and he's really questioning whether they should go through with this heinous plan.
Maybe we are crazy. Maybe we should all die. I should go. I'll be late.
So this is a kind of alternate end that I had for The Horde. And I toyed with where this would go, or should it go in, should it go before the tag in the diner or after? And I tried it in a lot of places, and it didn't quite feel right. It was the original ending of The Horde in the script, and then I wrote the one that's in the movie at the Mirror. And we reshot that afterwards, and that felt more of like the vibe of how I wanted to end. Like, so I had this ending in for a while and kind of moved it around in a few different places, but it was just too dark, and it kind of made it feel one note for me about what his intentions were. What is his motivations? I just didn't want the beast's motivations to be reduced to kind of killing, that kind of thing. So that's why I wrote the ending that you see in the movie with the mirror. So it was more kind of, showing the world what we were capable of. But this was the original ending, kind of dark and kind of gruesome ending.
Look at all those unbroken souls. Such a waste.